never faze me. They watch the steps that I be taking. That's why they say that I'm amazing. Been the top dog before the nonsense. I've always been a public figure. Now the frame didn't got too big cause more people want to get up in it.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. I'm your host, John Madsen. This is the show. If you're watching right now, I'm wearing some dope sunglasses. My wife bought me these. These are Maybachs. I don't even know how to say it, but my gripe with these things are that they're super expensive. They look good. I think they look good. You guys can decide if you're watching on YouTube. Maybe I'll just do this intro with the sunglasses on, but they're super expensive. I don't know, like $2,000 or $3,000. And I'm not necessarily a sunglass person. My wife is a sunglass person. She loves sunglasses. I, on the other hand, I love shoes. Sunglasses are like, you know, I usually don't wear sunglasses, but my gripe with these sunglasses is that I always wear them like this. It's like tucked into my shirt, right? It's like I wear them like this, and then guys, for whatever reason, we're always going up, and you know how you do that like one hand five and then you wrap around, and it's like I forget that these sunglasses are on, and then people go in for the little hug and I like stiff arm them away, and I'm like, yo, and they're like, what's going on? You know, that's a weird stiff arm in the middle of a bro hug, and I'm like, bro, my fucking sunglasses, right? And I don't necessarily want to be like tell them that they're $3,000 sunglasses, but then they're looking at me like, dude, why do you care about those sunglasses, right? And so, you know, my gripe is that when you buy really like nice shit, is that sometimes it stresses you out because you don't want to. I'm not even going to say what I was about to say because I don't like to put it out there. My sunglasses are nice, that they're fine, and they're safe. But you know what I mean. When you buy nice shit, you have this attention that gets put on it, and sometimes that attention makes you a little bit stressed out. So anyways, not what I was going to talk about today. However, the topic of today's show is the psychology of winning. There's nothing I like to talk about more than winning. When I was a kid and we played family Uno or Monopoly, I would cause fights with my sister and my mom and dad because I was that kid who hated to lose. And someone asked me this question the other day. They're like, John, do you hate losing more or like winning more? And I have to consider this thought because I love to win, but I really, really hate losing. Some of you right now, you're walking your dog, you're driving to work, you're at the gym, and you're saying, amen. I fucking hate losing. I just hate it, you know? And this was a quality that, like, I believe it was a great quality because it propelled me to ultimately reach my dream of playing in the National Football League. Like I hated losing so bad. I was driven to not feel the pain of losing. And however, relationship wise, as far as like, you know, playing on teams, and, you know, I played tennis growing up, and my mom was a phenomenal tennis teacher. In fact, fun fact, when we were in like 9th grade, we won the state championship in Utah in tennis. And this is a funny story because we weren't country club kids. In fact, I grew up in West Valley, which was considered, you know, the west side of the state and the poor side. And so the west side kids didn't have country clubs. Like we didn't have country club tennis. And so my instructor was my mom. And tennis for us was like we put together a squad where tennis was like our third or fourth sport. We were basketball kids, we were baseball kids, we were football kids, and tennis was like something we did in the summer. And so my dad had this truck with, like, depending on where you grew up, like we had this truck, and in the back of it was like, they called it a carpet kit. So a carpet kit with a shell on the truck, like an F-150, and we could load like 12 kids up in the back of that truck, and she would just drive us to play tennis. So my mom would do that like every Monday, Wednesday, Friday for years. Like we were playing tennis, and we found out really quickly that I couldn't play doubles when I was growing up because doubles gave me an opportunity to get really fucking pissed off at my doubles partner. And you can't have that type of personality in that raw form and be a great doubles partner. So long story short, I had to play singles because doubles, there was another person who I was not always nice to. And so if you're listening and we were on the tennis team together and I was your doubles partner, forgive me. I've changed. I've done work on myself. I'm sorry for when I was 12 to 15 years old. Before that, probably 7 to 15 years old. And you might have taken the brunt of my blame because I hated losing so much. And so on team sports like baseball, it was even worse in a way because like in rec leagues, everyone had to get some playing time, right? And so like to me, in my juvenile brain, when I was putting in the most practice and I lived, I ate, and I breathed sports, I'd play in these games, and then the kids that like their parents just kind of shuttled them over for a babysitter service, and they didn't practice like I practiced. They didn't care like I cared. They didn't really hate losing like I hated losing. And they ultimately, they had to get their playing time. And so when they were getting their playing time, I had to sit on the bench. And when I was sitting on the bench and the other team was coming back from behind, I didn't love it, I didn't love it. And so like rec leagues in little leagues, like you have to learn to be a team player, and that means giving other kids a chance. But in my brain back then, when kids wouldn't care as much as I cared, it was hard. It was hard to relate. And, as an adult, my people are winners. And that doesn't mean like they never lose. It just means that they have that same drive that I have. And now, we play nice in society, and, we've hopefully graduated from being a complete dickhead, which at times I probably was. But even now today, like if a person has this entitled type of thinking where they feel like they should, reap the rewards that other people have reaped, and they've put in 1/10 of the work, it just doesn't vibe with me. And if you're listening to me right now, you're probably once again saying amen, right? And so my point in all that is like I've crafted my life around people with this winning mindset that I'm going to talk about. And I've broken down this psychology of a winning mindset into 5 pieces, so that if you're kind of on the fringe and you're like, man, I want to win a little bit more, it's going to start and end with your thinking, right? There's action in the middle of that's going to determine whether or not or how much success you have. But the way that you think is ultimately going to determine your behavior, which is ultimately going to determine your results. And so the psychology of winning to me is one of the most fascinating topics that I could ever talk about, because the other stuff's boring. For example, I just got on ChatGPT and I was like, what is the one question that people want to know about fitness? And like the little chat bot comes up and it's like, people want to know what the best exercise program is for weight loss. And I'm like, fuck. I'm like, I don't know how many more times I could talk about that, right? Like we got an app that you could do the exact workout program that I do for less than $1 a day, superhumanapp.com. We have a diet calculator, not a calculator, like a meal plan that explains how many calories, proteins, carbs, and fats that you should essentially start out with, superhumandiet.com. We have these resources everywhere, and I talk about this stuff all the time, and it's like, look, it's not rocket science. You want an exercise program that is going to yield rewards forever. It's resistance training with progression built in. It's 3 to 4 to 5 workouts per week for an hour. It's lifting with enough resistance to create adaptation to your muscle cells. So therein lies the progression. It's eating in a way that is tailored to you, the correct amount of macronutrients as far as body composition is concerned, to manipulate your body to strip fat or build muscle depending on your goal. It's like, it's really simple, right? It's really simple, but that's what people want to know. And it's like, that's not the reason why they're stuck. The reason why they're stuck is because they don't have the psychology of a winner. They have the psychology of a loser. And so like, I'd rather talk about the psychology of winning, because if I can get you to think better, then the rest is easy. But if I can't change your thinking, I can give you the program on a silver platter and nothing's gonna change. So the way that you think is ultimately what's gonna determine your results. So let's get into this, okay? The psychology of winning in 5 steps. There's more, but top of my mind this morning, number 1 is you have to be willing to lose. Winners are willing to lose. Losers are so afraid of losing that they're not willing to lose, and so they play not to lose, and therefore they never win. The champions are willing to lose. They're willing to lay it on the line. They're willing to give it their best effort. They're willing to go out there in that motherfucking arena, and they're willing to bleed. They're willing to cry. They're willing to scrape. They're willing to scrap. They're willing to do whatever it is they need to do. And at the end of the day, if they gave it their best and someone came out on top, that is success still, because what's worse than that is sitting on the sideline and watching someone else play. And so the first step in this psychology of winning in my eyes, and what I see wrong in so many people, is that so many people are so afraid to lose that they never really live. They never really play. And so if you can get your mind and wrap your mind around the single step, which is being willing to lose, and essentially what I'm saying is being willing to give it your all, then you're going to win far more than you lose. And I lose sometimes, and everybody watching this has lost sometimes. But the difference is that I'm completely willing to go out there and to try, and whatever happens, and I can live with. That's how I ultimately got to the National Football League. When I never played high school football, I walked on to the junior college team. I sucked at football. Like, if I look at myself, I was a long shot to make the team. I didn't know how to run a route. I was athletic, and I was willing to get completely embarrassed out there. And I did on multiple times. I did get embarrassed multiple times, but I was willing, like I had the courage somehow to go out there and be willing to go through this tryout and then have a coach look at me and say, you're not good enough. I was willing to do that. And I did the same thing at the University of Utah. I walked on there too. I was willing to face that demon and see what I was capable of. And most people aren't. Most people want to play it safe. Most people want to protect themselves. They don't even know it, but their ego is protecting them, right? Their unconscious mind is protecting their ego. It's like, don't go over here because, your ego will get crushed. And champions have this willingness to lose that I think that other people don't have. Number 2 is champions constantly bet on themselves. So the second trait of the psychology of a winning mindset is that the people who win have this ability to continue to go all in on themselves all the time. They take that risk. They'd rather bet on them than bet on anybody else. And again, it takes, the common theme here, the common denominator as I'm speaking it out, is this courage that it takes. Right? Because a lot of times people are not willing to bet on themselves, right? And so they bet on other people. They bet on the wrong horses. When I was really trying to scale this online business, and there's multiple examples that I can think of, but the one example that I'm thinking of right now is I had this opportunity to hire a coach for 40 grand, and I had 50 grand in the bank. And so some of you old listeners, you've heard this story. Some of you new listeners, you don't know what I'm talking about. But essentially 3.5 years ago, me and my wife had a rainy day fund, 50 grand. And that was it. That was all we had, 50 grand. And 50 grand is not a lot of money, but we had 50 grand and we weren't going to touch that shit. That was rainy day fund. And we get introduced to this guy. I feel like he can really help explode my business. It was going to cost $40,000. And I never forget the day that he came over to my house and I had this check written in red ink. And as I was handing that check over, I felt my heart like tremble, right? It was like, I'm trembling inside. I'm like, fuck, I'm like, this is 40 out of the 50 that we have. And, I could have done a payment plan possibly, right? I think I could have done a payment plan that would have cost me an extra 10 grand over time, right? And that might have made me feel safer, but like this was me like betting on myself once again. It's like, here's 40 grand. I'm not betting on you. I'm betting on me, right? I need help in these areas. I'm going to bet on me again. And I can't tell you how many times I've done that. And the people that I know are successful, right? Not like fake success, that I know are successful, whether it's, great athletes, or in my world now, it's like great entrepreneurs, great business people, men and women. And they have this relentlessness about their betting on them, right? And they have this risk tolerance when it comes to them, where they know that they'll go all in on themselves over and over and over again. And so that's a huge quality where most people are too afraid. Once again, like they don't have the courage to bet on themselves because they don't really believe in themselves. Right. And so they're always like waiting for, gathering more information and like making sure that everything is perfect. And like they're always procrastinating in this way that they never really have to jump off, because again, they're not willing to lose, and B, they're not really willing to jump in and bet on themselves. And if that's you, I would urge you, right, to bet on yourselves today. Number 3, consistent persistence. One of the favorite analogies I have here is that Chinese bamboo plant that I've talked about in the past too, where, for 5 years, you're watering, you plant a seed and then you water this area where the Chinese bamboo plant seed is planted. And for 5 years, like nothing changes. This bamboo plant, it doesn't sprout. You don't see any change. You just have to go out there and you have to water this plant day after day after day, month after month after month, year after year after year. And what happens is most times people lose faith. right? They're putting in the work, they're doing some action. Maybe they bet on themselves once. Maybe they think that they're, willing to lose. And what happens is frustration sets in, and then the doubt builds, right? And then think it's never going to happen. And then they believe the lie, and then they divert and they go try to do something else, find an easier way. And people who win, the psychology of winners in this third step, they persist until they succeed. They persist until they succeed. Maybe they didn't see the roots that were going down with the ability for this reality that this Chinese bamboo plant is going to sprout up 60, 70, 90 feet, almost seemingly overnight after 5 years of no seen activity, right? And so sometimes like this work that you're putting in hasn't yielded the results that you want, but you can't see the stuff that's going on behind the scenes. You can't see the skill sets that you're crafting. You can't see the mentality that you're shaping. You can't see the connections that you're making. You can't see all of that stuff. But the people who win with this consistency, they never stop. And so whether it takes 5 years or whether it takes 10 years or whether it takes 20 years, all of a sudden you're like that Chinese bamboo plant and the results feel effortless, right? But most people never get there because they quit too soon. The fourth quality of the psychology of a winning mindset is you win or you learn. And so people with this quality, they never, although losing like hurts my soul when I feel like I'm losing, I don't ever feel like I've lost. And so there's like a huge difference there. There's multiple times I felt like I was losing, but I've never felt like I lost the game. And so I stay in the game. I feel the pain of losing, but it's not this definite loss. And so I have this mentality, and people that are winning in life, they win or they learn. If they feel like they're losing, it's feedback for them to do something differently, right? It's feedback. They're learning. And so many times like in this fitness journey for myself, where I started with real gyms in Salt Lake City in 2010, it's now 2023. That's 13 years ago. 13 years of consistency. And there was tons of learning lessons in there, but tons of people would have turned those into losses and they just would have quit and gone a different way. I had to shut down like 2 or 3 different gyms, right? Like I almost had to file bankruptcy probably 2 or at least 2 times. I had sold my equipment for pennies on the dollar 2 different occasions, right? And so like that loss in the moment, like it felt like losing, but I never felt like I lost the battle. Right? So I stayed in the game and ultimately learned lessons that have eventually led me to the point that I'm at right now. And I'm still learning lessons. I don't have it all figured out. I'm looking at the camera. I'm speaking on YouTube or on the podcast or in your earphones that you're listening to right now. I don't have all the answers, but I have a lot of answers because I've stayed in the game, and I don't think of win or lose. I think of it as win or learn. And then the last one is having an attitude of gratitude. And this one's huge, right? Like I'm grateful to be speaking to you right now. I'm grateful for all of my past experiences that have led me to this moment. I'm grateful for the 250 something other episodes that came before this one so that I can do this one. I'm grateful for the days that are easy. I'm grateful for the days that are not so easy. I'm grateful. I wake up grateful. I wake up blessed. I wake up and I thank God for the breath that's in my lungs. I'm truly grateful to be on this journey. Now, sometimes I want the results like you do faster, but at the same time, like I'm grateful for what I have. And this one attitude, this attitude of gratitude, shifts you out of scarcity and propels you into abundance. And if you want to succeed in life, if you want to succeed in your business, if you want to succeed in your fitness, like you can't have this attitude of scarcity. It has to be an abundant way of thinking. And the best way to shift out of scarcity and into abundance is to have this attitude of gratitude. And so I wanted to share these 5 traits, right? I want to explain the psychology of having a winning mindset, the way that is meaningful to me. And so these 5 steps, I hope that they've helped you, right? And I'll say them again just in case you want to jot them down in your notes. And then if this episode meant something to you or you loved it, please reach out to me via social and let me know. Leave a review if this podcast has been helpful for you in any way, shape, or form. But these 5 traits, once again, are being willing to lose, constantly betting on yourself, consistent persistence, you win or you learn, and then an attitude of gratitude. 5 traits, a winning mindset in my mind. And once again, if you change the way you think, you change the way you behave. If you change the way you behave, you change the results that you have or don't have. And so it's all gonna start between the ears. And so the way that you think ultimately determines the way that you live. And if you're gonna live in a way that you probably want to live, you're gonna have to have the psychology of a winner. Thanks, guys. Love you guys. We'll talk to you next week.